Iran's Islamic Revolution in 1979 stunned the world, resulting in the overthrow of the Pahlavi dynasty and the last Persian emperor. The revolution led to the replacement of the imperial state of Iran with the present-day Islamic Republic of Iran. The cancer-stricken Iranian Shah went into exile, and the godfather of the revolution, Ayatollah Khomeini, returned from exile to become the supreme leader, posing a new challenge for world politics. You need to go back to understand how one man could have such a powerful influence on his country, shaping the nation's identity and leading Iran to that. In the 18th century, Iran was under the rule of the Qajar dynasty, established by Muhammad Khan Qajar in 1789. It was called Persia back then. The Qajar family assumed complete authority over the state of Persia. Under the reign of the second Shah, Fath Ali Shah Qajar, the Persian Empire engaged in a conflict with the Russian Empire in 1804. Despite support from the French and Ottoman empires, the Persians faced defeat and invasion by the Russians, who were supported by the British Empire. The war ended in 1813 with the Treaty of Gulistan. Consequently, Persia suffered losing territories in most of what is nowadays Azerbaijan, eastern Georgia, and parts of northern Armenia. The Qajar dynasty maintained continuous rule over the Persian state until the early 20th century, when both the British and Russian empires vied for more control, but neither of them wanted outright war. This led to the Anglo-Russian Convention in 1907, which divided the state of Persia between the two powers. Russia assumed control of the northern region to safeguard its borders, while the British obtained the southeastern region due to the strategic importance of the Persian Gulf for sea lanes to India. Also, British interest in discovering oil in this region led to the establishment of the Anglo-Persian Oil Company in 1909, later known as BP in 1954, which discovered a significant oil field in Persia. The last ruling member of the Qajar dynasty and the youngest was Ahmad Shah Qajar. After the removal of his father, Muhammad Ali Shah, by the parliament in 1909, he ascended to the throne at the age of 12. Due to his young age, his uncle, Ali Reza Khan, took charge of his affairs as regent. In 1921, a series of coup events began with the Persian Cossack Brigade, headed by Reza Khan. In 1923, Ahmad Shah went into exile, leaving Persia for Europe, and with his exile, the Qajar dynasty era came to an end. A new chapter began with the Iranian royal dynasty, and in 1925, Reza Khan became Reza Shah, and then he attempted to turn Persia, which he renamed Iran, into a modern, secular Western style that included women were no longer allowed to wear a veil. However, these changes were met with resistance from the clergy, who viewed them as conflicting with Islamic principles. As Shah kept reforming Iran, one man was really angry and saw this as an assault on Islamic religion. This man was Ayatollah Khomeini, who studied Islamic theory but didn't make any public speeches or appearances at that time. 1939, World War II erupted since Hitler initiated attacks on the European continent, and then in 1941 started attacking the Soviet Union. The British and the Americans depended on Iran to ship arms and heavy weapons to the Soviet Union for the battle against Nazi Germany. Consequently, the British and the Soviet Union invaded and occupied Iran. The British offered to keep Reza Shah's family in power if he agreed to a life of exile. Succumbing to the pressure, Reza Shah abdicated, and British forces quickly took him and his children to South Africa, leaving behind his eldest son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, to become the Shah of Iran at the age of 20 in 1941. Reza Shah died in exile in 1944 in South Africa. Now the Allies have full control of Iran, and the Shah will do what they demand. In 1943, the three Allied power leaders from Russia, Britain, and the United States met at the Tehran Conference. During this meeting, the Allies announced that they would stay until the end of the war, which turned out to be the 2nd of March 1946. On that date, the British began to withdraw, but the Soviet Union remained in Iran. After 2 months, the United States forced the Soviets to withdraw through diplomatic pressure. After World War, oil became very important for the growth of the global economy. In 1949, American President Harry Truman invited the Shah to New York. Americans wanted secure access to the vast oil reserves in Iran. In return, the Shah, who was aggressively reforming Iran, needed support for his plans to turn the country into a modernist, secular, and westernized nation. The oil industry in Iran, run by private companies controlled by foreign interests, in 1951, the Iranian parliament initiated the nationalization of the Iranian oil industry to seize control of Iran's oil resources. Iranian Prime Minister Haj Ali Razmara was assassinated by an ardent supporter of oil nationalization. Shortly after the assassination, the Iranian parliament nominated Mohammad Mossadegh as their new prime minister. The Shah went into temporary exile. The nationalization of Iranian oil dealt a blow to foreign countries' economies. Subsequently, the intelligence agencies of the United Kingdom, MI6, and the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States, or the CIA, secretly staged a coup, removing Mohammad Mossadegh from power. The country became divided between Shah supporters and Mossadegh supporters. The United States supported the Shah with a significant amount of money, and eventually Mossadegh and his cabinet surrendered. The US then restored the Shah to power again. This move made Ayatollah Khomeini even angrier that the US had taken back control of Iran. After this, Iran transformed from a constitutional monarchy into a royal dictatorship. In 1957, the CIA helped the Shah establish a secret police force known as SAVAK. Training its agents, the agency tortured many Iranians, leading to growing anger among the Iranian people. At that time, Ayatollah Khomeini, in his public appearances, had become the great Ayatollah and assembled quite a following. He used this advantage to gain power in Qom city, prompting the government to send the army to Qom, arrest Khomeini, and sentence him to death. However, the sentence was later changed, and Khomeini was exiled to Najaf in Iraq. In the 1970s, the country experienced economic growth and modernization. The capital, Tehran, opened itself up to Western culture, and the lifestyle of the people changed. It became rare to see veiled women in the city. On the other hand, Khomeini published a book titled Islamic Government, arguing that the government should and must be run in accordance with traditional Islamic law. The book was banned in Iran, and the SAVAK secret police arrested anyone found with a copy. Those politically opposing the Shah's regime faced imprisonment in the Iranian Secret Service SAVAK prison, where they were tortured and executed. Active Iranian politicians today, such as the current supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, were imprisoned during the Shah's regime. In 1978, the first protest against the Shah took place in Qom. Khomeini went into exile in France, where his speeches against the Shah were recorded and distributed in Iran. As the protests grew day by day, the Shah had to move the army against them. With hundreds of thousands of protesters on the street, eventually the soldiers stopped shooting at the people and the protesters put flowers in their guns and Khomeini posters. The Iranian political crisis prompted powerful leaders from America, Britain, Germany, and France to gather in France to decide on the fate of Iran. The assembled leaders concluded that there was no way to save Mohammad Reza's position as the Shah of Iran. They suggested that he leave Iran as soon as possible, fearing that could lead to civil war and possibly to Soviet intervention. After the conference ended, the Shah's regime collapsed. On January 16, 1979, the Shah left Iran for exile. 2 weeks later, on February 1, 1979, after 14 years of exile, Khomeini returned to Iran, welcomed by a joyous crowd estimated to be up to 5 million people. The Shah traveled to many countries, including the United States, for medical treatment of lymphatic cancer, and eventually ended up in Cairo, Egypt, where he passed away on July 27, 1980, marking the end of the Pahlavi dynasty. Khomeini died on 3 June 1989 after suffering 5 heart attacks in just 10 days. Under Khomeini's leadership, Iran was eager to establish a fundamentalist Islamic government, an ideology that still rules to this day. For some Iranians, it was the most significant, hopeful, and profound event in contemporary Islamic history, while others believed that the revolution was a loss of their minds and which promised them heaven but created a hell on earth.